right, everybody. Hey, we're playing this game right now, or I just did. It was how many grapes can I shove in my mouth and get swallowed before I go live? It's not as many as you think it is. That coffee is delicious, by the way. Home roasted, of course, because all of the good coffee is home roasted, I'm pretty sure. No, that's not true. There are amazing little roasteries that exist out there that are fantastic. Just look for something medium roast and freshly roasted, not in a can or sold at a grocery store. You know, something good, and you'll be okay. So let's get into today's Bible study. Today's Bible study is going to ask a question: who is my enemy? And it's going to come up in a couple of different ways as we read through this story. This is going to be some more of the Gideon story. So it's going to kind of pull on everything we've learned about Gideon up until this point, right? And so it's kind of important for us to kind of know Gideon's story a little bit. I mean, if you don't know it that well, I'll try to catch you up, but we're going to have to pull back a little bit into Gideon's story and see what exists back there to figure out what it looks like. But it's gonna be really good. So I'm starting in Judges chapter 7, verse 19. Now I was tempted to begin at verse 15, I believe, because I wanted to retell the story of like Gideon's command to his men. But really, in verse 19, you're going to see everything that he commanded them anyways. We're beginning at verse 19. So I decided to do there, but it is an abrupt beginning. I just am acknowledging to you that verse 19 is an abrupt beginning. Even though verse 18 was a good ending, verse 19 is an abrupt beginning. So, you know, but you're along with me for the journey. You're good. You've already read verse 18, so you're ready to go. I'm going to start reading, and I'll probably stop a couple of times. We'll talk about a couple of things that I noticed in the text, and then we'll get on with our Mondays. Happy Monday, by the way. If you watch this on a Monday, you are a spectacular human being. I just want to say that. Not enough people are telling you that about yourself, I'm sure. But I know, and you know, that you are a spectacular human being because it's Monday, and you are making Scripture a priority in your life. Way to go. All right, here we go. Let's do this. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the three companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars, and they held in their left hands the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow, and they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" Every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried, and they fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. And the army fled as far as Bethsheba towards Zerah, as far as the border of Abel-Meholah by Tabith. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. Okay, so a couple of things to notice here. First of all, blowing a trumpet when God is with you is like far better, I'm just saying, than like shooting a gun. Like if God is with you and he says, here's what I want you to do. Like, here's the plan for battle. Okay. We're going to blow trumpets. Just say, yeah, I'm there. Okay. Like I'm going to do this because, over and over again, we read it in the book of Joshua, we're reading it in the book of Judges, like over and over and over again, God's plan in military battle is like, okay, here's your weapon. It's a trumpet, which I think is valid. I don't know if you've ever sat at the business end of a trumpet. I have on stages playing in different, venues and stuff, playing music. And it's like a trumpet is like the loudest thing on earth ever. I'm just saying, okay? And I'm a little bit bitter about it because I've even shared stages with trumpets whenever they're like, the electric guitar is too loud, could you turn down? And I'm like, I could not possibly be louder than a trumpet. So I mean, I have emotional baggage about it. But if God ever calls you into a war and he says, you're going to use a trumpet, just say, okay, I'm going to do that, right? Because it's going to work. It just is. Maybe we should think about that. The other thing that I want to point out there, though, and this is a little bit more serious, okay, on a little bit more serious note, notice that the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and the army. In other words, they were fighting with themselves and they were fighting with Midian, and they just kind of freaked Midian out. Midian's like, these people are crazy. They're like blowing trumpets and they're breaking stuff and they're fighting each other and we're out of here. Like, that's kind of what, it's almost funny whenever you read it, right? Like, and so they chase Midian out of there. And then what you see is as Midian flees away, what you see is that Gideon is going to call out all these different armies to pursue Midian, right? And so you see the men of Israel called out, Naphtali called out, Asher called out, Manasseh called out. Like, Gideon is just calling out more and more people to pursue Midian, who is fleeing away from Gideon. Gideon, it says in verse 24, sent messengers throughout all of the hill country of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites and capture the waters against them as far as Beth-barah and also the Jordan. So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they captured the waters as far as Beth-barah and also the Jordan, and they captured the two princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the winepress of Zeb. Then they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan. Now, here's what you see there, right? Like, they win the battle, right? Basically, is what you're learning there. Like, Ephraim is winning the battle against Midian. Now, Gideon is the leader. He's the one who's setting everybody out to do what they're, being called to do. But were it not for Ephraim, the battle would not have been won. And that's very important to recognize, because Ephraim is actually a little bit hurt about this whole military situation. They're a little bit hurt about this entire battle, right? And so the men of Ephraim in chapter 8, verse 1, the men of Ephraim said to him, who is Gideon, what is it that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian? And they accused him fiercely. Now, I think that that's very interesting, because we just read that they won the war, right? So why are they mad that they weren't able to fight? Of course they fought. They won the war. And if you go back, though, in history and you look at Ephraim's role in history, Ephraim has from their tribe a man named Joshua, who was like the greatest man of war that the Bible has ever known, right? And so Joshua was of Ephraim, and he led Israel for a number of years. And when he led Israel, he led them faithfully. And Israel was also faithful. And they saw such great success, and they took over the promised land, and everything was good. Right? In a little bit in their future, Ephraim is going to have a man born there named Saul. They're also going to have a man born there named David. They are going to be key in progressing Israel forward for generations throughout the course of their history, right? Solomon will be born of them. They are a major player in the kingdom, and here they're saying, we were not major, we were minor. Who's your enemy? Like, that's the question, right? We see Israel fighting against itself in this battle. We see Ephraim fighting against Gideon, or angry at Gideon for not being utilized. Who is your enemy? I think that's the question that the text is asking us today. And what is your reason for being upset at them, right? Ephraim is upset because they feel underutilized. Now, Gideon's going to fix that. In verse 2, Gideon says to them, what have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of grapes of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? God has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you? In other words, I haven't done anything, right? Like, I chased them to you. You're the one who did everything, right? And it says that their anger against him subsided when he said this, right? Because he kind of stroked their ego a little bit. He minimized what he did, and he maximized what they did, right? But why? My question is why do they need all of this glory in the first place? And I think that that's a question that we need to ask ourselves as we read this text. Like, why do I need recognition? Why do I need to be the focus of glory? Why do I need to be seen as great? Like, why do I need to be the one who's called out upon, right? Obviously, they did something good. Obviously, they fulfilled what God had for them to do. Obviously, they won the battle. Why do they need the recognition too? And I think that is a question, right? As Christians, we live our lives attempting to glorify Christ, that Christ would be glorified through us. which means that in everything that we do, we seek not our own glory, but the glory of the one who sent us. We have to keep that in mind, because Gideon is the beginning of a huge warning shot that is going to haunt Israel for a number of years here. And part of the issue is going to be glory and pride. You're going to see that play out a little bit more tomorrow. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you have a question or a comment for us, or if you have something to add, you can leave it in the comments. I love to read your comments. Please subscribe to the channel. You can click that bell icon to receive notifications when we go live. And of course, if you could share this with somebody that you think would enjoy it, that would mean a huge amount to me. Love y'all, and I will see you tomorrow.